Hey everybody, how are you doing? Christian here, and welcome to another live stream episode. So, where we are discussing today a very interesting topic. So, I'm really excited to see how this live stream goes and what are your questions and what we're going to discuss today. We're talking about Homelab security and try to answer the questions, so how secure your Homelab has to be in the widest sense, so to speak. So anything from like how to secure your infrastructure, how to secure your applications, all of this stuff we'll hopefully cover today. And I've prepared a couple of points that I want to discuss with you today. So hope you're ready for it. By the way, if you're watching the recording, so you can still leave me comments or have a chat with me on Discord if you want to get in touch and if you want to follow up the discussion. Please have a look at the community, join our Discord, and of course, if you like to support my mission creating free tutorials and providing all these live streams entirely for free, check out the Patreon page. You will find a link in the description down below. So that would be amazing. And yeah, good to see you, everybody. See all the familiar names here in the chat, so it's really amazing. It's really good to see. And by the way, I just want to say a few words about like the recent videos and projects that I've done. I know a couple of you guys might have noticed that in the recent months, I kind of lost a bit like the motivation to make more videos. I've made one video like 6 months ago where I talked about almost stopped doing YouTube, and where I really talked about burnout and all my struggles with creating content and keeping everything up and so on. I just realized the last weeks when I was thinking about how far I've come and how difficult it has been, just realizing, wow, this video is almost 6 months old and nothing has changed. I really need to take a different direction in how I'm approaching this mission, how I'm doing content on YouTube. And what I can tell you today, even though I might sound a bit exhausted, I am exhausted, honestly. But at the same time, I kind of feel like I found back the original motivation that kind of made me start this whole project. And so many interesting projects that I've done in the recent weeks and I'm planning to do in the coming weeks and months. I'm so excited about it, and I just like to keep going and push forward and do some more projects. It's absolutely overwhelming, and thank you. I just want to say thanks to all the people in the community for all your positive feedback throughout those weeks, because it's been a rough ride, honestly. I got a lot of like pushback here and there from like personal stuff and so on, but also like in comments of recent videos, people have complained about like somewhat overall the quality of the video, so to speak. I somehow like noticed that there is like a raising part of some people on YouTube that seem to dislike in which direction the channel has gone and so on. But honestly, when I'm thinking about it, I know that still the vast majority of you guys enjoy what I do, love what I do, and you told me so many times in the comments, and I just want to say thank you all for your support. It's been really a rough ride, but I feel like I've now taken the right decisions to move forward and like take the channel back in a direction where I personally feel happy again with the content that I do, that with the project that I'm doing, and you're going to see the outcome in the next weeks once we go further down this road and we're diving deeper into some of this specific stuff. Thank you, everybody. All the guys from YouTube, but also on social media. I know TikTok and stuff. I try to do some content on TikTok as well. So if you see me live on TikTok, that can also happen from time to time. Yeah, sometimes in German, sometimes in English. Yeah, feel free to follow me there, but make sure that I'm dedicated more than ever to make more amazing content on YouTube. So thank you all so much. And if you want to support me, check out the Patreon program that I've created. Check out the Discord. Let's have a chat about all those stuff. And yeah, just wanted to get that out of the way. And what could be better than addressing it in live stream where we're all sitting together and having a friendly chat with each other. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, I thought, and yeah, thank you so much for all the comment. I can't really address everything in the chat because since those live streams have gone to such a higher volume, I can't really keep up with all of this stuff that you are saying. But be sure I'm reading all of it. Thank you so much, Dimitri. You're following me on TikTok. Yeah, glad to see you on YouTube as well, but also anything else. Like I see a lot of familiar names here in the chat on YouTube as well. So thank you guys. You're really amazing. Okay, cool. So, yeah, also like a lot of new names is saying like your channel is one of the best and your content is premium quality. Thank you so much. That is great to hear. Yeah, to be honest, I'm the most critical person when it comes to the channel quality and what I want to do and so on. I'm probably my worst criticism. Yeah, because I'm really harsh with what I feel like I'm doing wrong, and and yeah, that's really just my own like problem that I have. But well, I just wanted to let you guys know I'm feeling much more motivated right now to do stuff, and I hope that you will see that in the next videos in the coming weeks. So Meister Eder, danke. Thank you all. It's amazing. Please I'm just reading, like, please promise you will not publish a video about Ugreen new NAS, please. Well, what would you say if I would do that, if I would buy the Ugreen and test it? Would that be so bad? Honestly, I have no plans to do that, because honestly, this is like a device that I'm personally not so interested in. So, that's really the mantra or the idea that I have for all the future videos is make more videos about stuff that I'm personally interested in, not just because the company wants me to cover it. So let's get back to stuff that I'm really excited about. And once I started to shift more back in this direction, I've planned out a couple of interesting projects for the next coming weeks. I also feel like much more happy with it, because I feel like, okay, so when I do a video about something, it's actually something I'm all excited about. I know exactly why I'm doing it, what is the goal and so on. And I don't have to, I don't have to comply to any rules or anything like this. So that's definitely the best direction moving forward. And get them to sponsor it, then you don't have to pay for it. Yeah, I could actually do this. But also, I mean, if they would give me it for free, what should I do with it then after, or what? Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, well, maybe I'll do more reviews in the future if you'd like me to do that. But for now, I'm really more excited about all of the projects that I'm doing. So we will see. I know a lot of other tech YouTubers are talking about Ugreen, but it's kind of like those type of news videos about new products and stuff. For me personally, this is just the low-hanging fruit, right? I mean, every tech YouTuber can do that, right? It's not like the most challenging thing. So, but who else can do a great in-depth tutorial about Authentic or about IT automation platform? Just show me, right? I'm all about it. So let's the other people on YouTube catch the long-hanging fruit, and let's focus more on the valuable tutorial stuff. So that's what I'm saying about it. Anyway, well, so let's get into topic. I have prepared a couple of interesting points about Homelab security. It's such a vast topic, and I feel like I could just make an entire series about Homelab security. Probably that could be like 7, 8, 9 videos about each and every of those points that I want to go into. But I wanted to start with a more open discussion to get some ideas what you're interested in, and make a more open stream where I've prepared a couple of things. We can talk about that, and I'm happy to hear all your feedback. So we will go into this. But the overall question that probably needs to be addressed first, and I know that not everybody has addressed it, is really just like the question about when it comes to security and IT, as this is such a vast field, but what actually matters really in terms of a Homelab scenario? Because we are all Homelab people here, right? I mean, you guys know I work in IT security. I work on the professional side of IT security. I talk through a lot of highly complex topics with customer, like AI analysis of URLs, like content analysis, next generation firewall stuff, and so on. But actually, realistically, in my Homelab scenario, or what I'm testing and trying out at home, does not always reflect the business side, because there's definitely a big difference between the requirements of an enterprise company versus the requirements of a small individual setup, such as we have in our Homelab. So there is definitely the right I would say the right premise that we need to set first. So it's, what are we aiming for? And that is what I want to talk with you about first, because that's also the reason for the title of this live stream: how secure your Homelab really has to be. And I know there's not the definite answer for it. There's not like, this is what you have to do, this is the must-have, and anything else is entirely stupid, and so on. There's really no real answer to it, but I try to keep as close to this answer as possible. And you will also later see during this live stream that it's really not just about facts, but it's more about how close can we get to the end goal, and how can we improve our Homelabs to reach a certain level of security. But there's definitely, I would say, the security of any setup is very much depending on the skill and the effort of the administrator putting into this. And that's it about that. And that is also why the question needs to be addressed first. So what are we actually trying to achieve here? And you probably might have heard the term that somebody say, like, nothing is 100% secure, 100% security cannot be achieved at all, and so on. And I would say, yeah, that's probably true. I mean, you can get as close to that as you want, or as you aim to be, but the 100% is not achievable at all. But then the next question would be, so what is then okay? So is it okay to be like 80% secure, or maybe 90% secure, or maybe 99 or 95? Where do we stop? And what's actually making sense in a small Homelab scenario, and what is just too crazy and too much effort, and it doesn't really give you any benefit of being much more secure? Let's address this first. And I want to say, throughout my vast experience of being in security and talking with companies about security best practices and so on, what I can tell you definitely, the good news I have for you guys is, because you hear that all the time, like security experts are always saying, like, oh, it is so bad, like cyber criminals are getting smarter and smarter, attacks are getting more and more sophisticated, techniques are getting much more targeted and planned, and so on. Everything is gonna get worse, and you can't do it alone anymore. You need a strong security partner. And that might be true for enterprise business, but the good news, I can tell you, the good news I have for you as Homelab individual people is that 99% of the common attacks you're gonna face in a Homelab scenario, you can pretty simple block in a Homelab scenario. There is not like this oh, if you do this and this and that, it's gonna get, like, you always affected, or you're always gonna get hacked and so on. It's not like this. If you're exposing port SSH, you're automatically getting hacked or something like that. So the good news is there are a couple of best practice sets. So really, like, the very, very stupid things you should avoid. But if you're doing this, if you're following the best practices, if you avoid doing stupid mistakes, you're almost, and I gotta say almost, 99% of the time very much secure with your Homelab. There are just a few very bad things you could do, and sure, there might be here and there a small mistake that you've done and you could get affected by something, but in 99% of the common attacks out there you're facing as an individual small company or a small like environment, this is actually pretty simple to block. There's nothing, no secret magic to it. So, I mean, a lot of like those security YouTubers are telling you in videos how to harden a Linux operating system and how to make it more secure and so on. Actually, what I'm telling you is, if you avoid doing stupid things, you're gonna be fine most of the time, right? So that is actually the good news. Getting this out of the way, and having that said, Of course, there are a lot of things you can do to improve this security, and it's actually helping you to stay safe online, and it's improving your setup and it's improving your security. But the question is really, so are you okay with that? So do you have the time and effort to go into those things? And if you do, well, be my guest, because that's what I'm all excited about. I like to educate, I like to experiment with that. But of course, if you're it's always depending on like it comes more down to educational things instead of being or blocking nasty things that could potentially damage everything and in your home lab. So that's what it's all about. So yeah, because from my experience in professional IT security, I can say that those sophisticated attacks, yes, they are increasing, and we are seeing sophisticated attacks more and more happening. But also know that those sophisticated attacks are rarely seen on small individual environment, and the case is just because those sophisticated attacks, so we are talking about like ransomware attacks, so really targeted attacks, they are really pretty difficult to plan and execute, because as they are mostly very targeted to specific environments and even specific companies and industry sets. And usually in a small home lab environment, you won't face them, you won't touch them, right? Because mostly those are targeted at big enterprise companies and so on. Just if you were asking if yes, I can see comments, I can see the chat, but because I'm streaming, yeah, and I'm seeing so many of you, of your comments on YouTube and so on, I'm probably not able to address everything, but yeah, that's... from time to time, I try to address a couple of points here and there. So feel free to leave a chat what you think about it, and yeah, what you think. Right. Also know that in IT security, there's always someone smarter than you. So don't expect just because you have like 10, 20 experience in IT and cybersecurity, you're going to be the pro. I've seen so many people thinking exactly the same, and then somebody like a 20 years old beginner somehow hacks an enterprise company for some reason. I mean, we probably have seen those days not so often. I mean, there are definitely some exceptions to that, but most of those targeted attacks are really done by groups, by well-organized and with financial support and so on. But yeah, again, in a home lab scenario, you probably won't face them. And yeah, if you're doing like there are a couple of low-hanging fruits, some best practices you just have to follow, and those best practices have always saved me the day, and also made sure that I stay secure in my home lab. All right. All right. So let's talk about those. Let's talk about those very specific low-hanging fruits there. So what exactly should you do? What are the stupid things you should avoid doing, especially in a home lab scenario? So there are a couple of things, but it really comes down to one major best practice, and which is like, and I always say, like, I summarize most of those techniques as minimize attack vectors, right? So this is like, that's probably the worst mistakes that beginners do, is they just don't really think about so how can someone actually access services, and where are specific attack vectors. So that means like you're giving someone the space to try out all certain things, and the chance is pretty high that at some point you made a mistake and somebody's able to get in. If you lower the number of potential things that could be exploited, the higher your chances are of not getting hacked. So it kind of seems like very logical. And this is how I would approach things first. So before I think about setting up a firewall or setting up TLS certificates, proxy and IDP, IDS and all those things, I first of all would follow or try to catch the low-hanging fruits. And this is like just minimize the attack vector. So this can be summarized in essentially like three or two major things that I would always do and ask when I set up anything on my home lab. is like, what are the services that you're running, and can they be accessed by a public network, right? So that's like, it's nothing secret. It's no secret. It's no secret magic or anything like this. If you do this, you're pretty much secure with most of the things, because if you don't open the ports, if you don't expose internal services online, nobody can access it. So it seems pretty logic. But it's definitely something that is often underestimated by people, right? So just because you can create a DNet rule on your router, that doesn't mean you should have to. The question is really, so what are you hosting? And you should have a good understanding of what are you running in your home lab, and do you actually have to expose it online? So also that involves, like, generally it is not a good idea to run unnecessary services. Like, really think about, do you actually need to open port SSH on your server, or can you close it? Yeah. Or maybe you are running a web server for testing and you forget to shut it down, and like in 2 weeks you're thinking about, this web server is still alive, but do I actually need it? I haven't updated it, so maybe I should just shut it down, right? And this is no secret magic or secret hardening tip. This is just like following the very simple tips that like exist online. So that's what you definitely can do. And firewalls are also like helping you. Firewalls can help you to block certain ports, or just block certain close connections from outside to inside. So that is the most simple way you can do to protect yourself. You don't have to think about what is the particular service, what is the version, are you running checks, and so on. No, if you just shut it down, nobody can access it. It's simple as that. Just a question from the chat. Is that a Lego 8080 on the table behind you? Yes, it is. You'll probably see it in the videos as well. So I'm a big Lego fan, so I love to build Lego sets, especially Star Wars. So I'm currently building my Lego Star Wars mock. So this is a scene from my absolute favorite movie from Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. So this is the battle on Hoth. So that is like, I need to get a few more bricks and maybe a few more sets to complete it. But at some point, if I do a studio tour or somewhat like this, I probably can show you that. It's really amazing. So I just love to build that, and yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, it was a birthday present from my parents, and that was one of the wishes I had, that they would buy me this Lego 8080. So it's really amazing. It's a really great set. So I love the version. I love the look and feel of it, and it's definitely makes a good impression. Yeah, on the scene that I'm trying to build. Yeah, really cool. Okay, guys, so, I spent a lot of time talking about, like, the low-hanging fruit, the simple things, but actually, it's the most important, right? I mean, that's probably what everybody can do, no matter how experienced you are in cybersecurity. This is what everybody can do, and it's often underestimated. Okay, great, so, just to summarize it, don't expose services on the public internet if you don't need to. Don't run unnecessary services, and use firewalls to block connections from outside to inside. And that's making you much more secure on the internet. All right. But let's come to the more difficult part, so to speak, because obviously just locking you out of the internet and saying like, oh, I don't need anything, so I can just block everything from outside to inside. So I'm just gonna sit alone in my cave and just play around with technology all the time myself, so I don't need to talk to anybody else. That's literally the same of you if you're afraid of getting attacked or getting in a car accident. Hey, I'm not driving again, right? But of course, from time to time, you just have to drive somewhere. If you need to visit the doctor, or if you need something to eat, if you're gonna pick up something from the grocery store, at some day you probably have to go outside, and you have to go outside in this dangerous world that we call the World Wide Web. So what are you going to do then? So maybe you want to expose services. You want to get access to your server from outside. Maybe when you're on vacation and you just want to find out, so is my server still alive or something like that. So And someday you will face this situation that you have to talk to somebody else, even though I know it's kind of this weird analogy, but we as IT guys, we're probably a bit like, we are not so social, right? So we like to sit in our cave and do something here on our own, and we probably are not comfortable in, like, I mean, that is for me. I won't say that that is true for everybody, but at least for me, I'm not really comfortable when I'm in big crowds, and so I just enjoy to stay at home and do my stuff here. But of course, at some day I need to go outside. Sometimes I need to access my server. So what I'm going to do then? So, and there are a couple of, like, one thing I need to get out of the way, and this is what I've seen online. And I know it's kind of a myth that probably most of you might know, but it's still like, it's still interesting to mention is, what about hiding services? Yeah, what about like you're just yeah, if you want to open port SSH, why not just switch the port to a not so well known port so that nobody knows how and where to access your server? I just want to show you one thing that is kind of interesting in this space, and this is one of the recent blog posts from Sophos XOps. So this on the Sophos News blog, where, and this is actually a pretty great series. It's about the remote desktop protocol, this series, right? So it talks a little about like what RDP is and why it's always used and so on. What's kind of an interesting metric is here. So this is the metric we get from IR cases, so the incident response team that responds to security incidents we see at big tech companies. And you can see that, like, over the years, and it's even increasing in value, like in like 90% of the cases from last year, RDP findings have been like at least one part of the problem. So you can see that like RDP is one of those protocols, probably like next to SSH, that is like hacked or attacked like in all of those scenarios. So it's really like RDP and SSH, probably like maybe also FTP, who knows, right? But with SSH, you can literally do anything. With RDP, you most of the time can also do anything if you're logged into an administrator account. Then you can definitely tell, like, although I just told you guys about the low-hanging fruits, about just closing those ports down, but you can literally see, like, even in 2023, those incident response cases have like 90% findings of RDP exposed to the public. And you can also see like those have been the common entry doors for somebody to break into a system. So what the hell is going on, right? So you can definitely see that even though every security expert advises those low-hanging fruits and best practices, the reality is like it's still getting affected most of the time. And what is also pretty interesting when you go closer to those different parts here, I think this is exposed RDP is dangerous. This part here, you can see that we did some analysis of, like, I mean, we collect a bunch of telemetry from all our like telemetry points. Like Sophos is one of the largest security vendors in the world. So we have like telemetry we got from endpoints, from firewalls, from cloud. Like we get so much telemetry of those like attacks, and we are seeing all of it. Because we are sitting on all of those points here, right? On endpoint, on firewalls, on cloud, we get a lot of data, and we can definitely see so how many times, like, you can see, like, we put something like a honeypot online, or the team that has done the research has done that. Like, we stood up a server, like, exposed RDP on the internet and walked away for 15 days. And you can see that, like, it's almost 1 million failed logins over those 15 days. So it did just take a couple of seconds or minutes until the server was tried to be exposed. So even though it was a completely fresh server that has never been seen online. And you can see what is the count of the username. You can even see, like, administrator is the first that is, like, used all the time. Then some spelling mistakes, but it's also pretty interesting to see that also, like, backup, admin, user, scanner, those kind of things, guest, those typical things, those very simple stuff. And as I said, if you want to protect from this, you can be secured by just sending a strong administrator password. And even though you can guess the username administrator, If he doesn't have the password, well, all right, yeah. And what you can also see is here in this test, so we did like a scan of, does it make a difference if you switch the RDP port from 3389, which is the default port for SSH, and switch it to a different one? And you can see it actually does not matter, because like there are scanners and ransomware groups that they can easily identify an RDP port is open and listening on a different like port number, right? The same is for SSH, for web, for telnet, for FTP, like anything that you use for transferring data to the server or remote access. It is completely useless to change the port number. You can also see like I just need to see and listening, no matter how obscure the port number is there. You can see, you can put it to a high port, it doesn't matter at all. These are the numbers and the findings from the research. You can also see like brute force attempts began less than 1 minute from when the RDP port was opened. You can see so how fast those botnets or those hacker groups are with trying to get access to your servers. It just takes less than a minute, right? Absolutely crazy. So sure, I mean there are, and that is exactly, so what can you do? Like, okay, so low-hanging fruit would be just close down RDP and you're gonna be fine, right? But what if you can't close down this port? What do you do then? So there are a couple of best practices I want to go through with you guys. So what you can do, and I'm gonna touch on a couple of different sections. I don't want to go into too much detail because that would, like, each section would fill like probably 1 or 2 or 3 more videos, right? But I've done videos on some of those points from time to time. You can still watch them, and yeah, so that's what we're going to do. Right. So the first thing I want to touch on is, and I just haven't done them in a meaningful order. I just filled them, yeah, with whatever came in my mind first, right? So maybe if we talk about RDP access, we probably should start with something that is a bit down my list, which is, for example, yeah, let's talk about like access control and secure authentication, which is actually not the same. So there are 2 different types of things, like authentication and access control. Like if you're like, let's start with that, right? So if you're exposing a service and you just rely on a single username and password, it can be like, in most of the times when you have a strong password set, yeah, it's all fine. But someone could still guess a weak password, and also what could also happen is someone could trick you in a phishing attack, and you probably enter your password somewhere, even though it's a strong one, and you might have stored it somewhere in a secure way. But if you enter it on a fake domain and you get attacked by phishing attack, it doesn't matter how strong your password is. This is like, okay, sure, your password should be strong, but a strong password doesn't automatically protect you from getting attacked. So there are ways to get this password. You could get phished or like even social engineering and so on. So that's really why secure authentication is really important. Like recently I've done a video, for example, about Authentic, which is an IDP, like an open source identity provider. And this is what you can use as a central source of truth for your user account and credentials, and protect it with multi-factor authentication. So you really need to think about, so how do you authenticate to all of your systems? And that also involves like those administrative systems where probably not so many users are accessing, but if you need to open this port and you have something like a default admin user and password, it's probably not the best way to do it. So that's what I just recently deployed Authentic in my Homelab, and I'm securing the authentication to most of the administrative interfaces with that. Not all yet, but most of them. For example, Proxmox, yeah. And this is a good way to protect it. I have like a second factor that I need to enter to get access to my Proxmox machine. And this is, of course, much better than rely on the root user and just choose a strong password, right? So those kind of things. Yeah, I definitely will do a follow-up video on Authentic, because there are a couple of things that I like to touch on. I'm still working on finding out, so how exactly does it work with LDAP, for example? Because LDAP would allow me to connect it to many more services than I have today. And there are also some others, like how to deploy it on Kubernetes and how to connect different traffic instances that are located on other servers, for example, because in the recent tutorial I just shown how to protect services and how to integrate it with traffic that is running on the same server. But of course, in my Homelab, I have a bunch of different environments. I have a Kubernetes cluster, I have like a couple of Docker servers. They all have like different traffic instances, and how do I protect that? So that is definitely what is what's going. So if you want to know how to do two-factor authentication with Proxmox and those kind of things, then check out Authentic. It's really a great solution, and I think it's also a great foundation for securing any other services in your Homelab. Okay, so that's like authentication is really important. Do two-factor authentication whenever it's possible. And what also comes with that is, when we talk about password, is credential management. So how do you store credentials? Do you use a password manager, or do you just write them down on a paper and put it under the keyboard? That's obviously not the good idea, but I probably know many people that do that. By the way, quite a funny story is, once I talked about with somebody about like secure password authentication. And those guys were saying like, okay, so we are in a company, and this company has a security policy that requires us to change our user passwords every 2 weeks. And I said, that doesn't seem like a good technique to me. And he said, why? It's more secure. Yeah, always change your passwords. It's amazing, right? And I said, well, if you're forced to change your password every 2 weeks, what will happen? The users are getting sick of it, and the users start to put in lazy passwords because they are easier to remember. So this is like the opposite of what you're actually trying to achieve will happen, because users are sick of changing their password every 2 weeks. They will just use something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the next week they will add a 7 to it. Or they say like their username, and the next week they put in a 1, then a 2, and they just count it up. So like, and it really prevents users from actually using strong passwords that they even don't have to remember. So it's really, instead of just applying such a stupid policy to always change passwords, I mean, it's generally probably not a bad idea to change the password like every 1-2 years or so, maybe. But if you have a strong password, if you have a multi-factor authentication, you always need to think about multi-factor authentication, even with a one-time password. This is making sure your password is literally changing every 30 seconds, right? To a random thing. So policy achieved, right? This is even the better way to do that. And somebody put it in the chat, the best password is to not need a password at all. That's also nice take. That's right. I've also done a video about passwordless authentication. I think that was in Teleport. Unfortunately, not all of the solutions allow passwordless authentication. But that is apparently, I mean, probably a much more secure approach than why rely on a weak factor at all, when you can use stronger factors of authentication, right? Okay, but yeah, that's it about like credential management. Of course, credential management also means like having like password managers, maybe for your personal and privacy needs, but also using credential management for machines. I think the biggest problem I've seen right now is how to deal with machine-to-machine authentication. So how do you securely connect a machine to a machine? So that involves things like webhooks or like microservices that need to securely talk to each other. It's like, it's great if you have an administrator account that has a strong password and a multi-factor authentication, but then you create an API token that is literally like weak string for some reason, where like a machine could get compromised and automatically get access to different systems. So that is also like a topic that I personally haven't touched on yet, but I'm really interested in secure machine-to-machine communication, and I know that Authentic does support those kind of scenarios. So I'm really excited to see how it does with that, but yeah, don't expect to see that anytime soon. Same as with HashiCorp Vault. I know this is such a topic that I literally wanted to cover like 2 years ago, but I literally didn't have the time to do it. So maybe I'll do in the future, but right now I've not completed to set up HashiCorp Vault on my own. So I'm slowly getting there, but yeah, it's definitely like any vault that holds like credentials securely, and that you, for example, you don't have like tokens that are valid forever, but you use short-lived tokens or short-lived secrets in any way. This is of course much more secure, and utilizing technologies like HashiCorp Vault or other password managers and credential systems that have short-lived authentication tokens, that is even much more secure. All right. Even though it's sometimes a bit annoying to authenticate every hour again, if you're taking a longer break and you come back to your workspace and then you have to do the authentication again because your 1 hour token expired. But hey, security comes with a bit of, how to say, like, security always has a fight against comfortability, right? Because it's like all of the security things you have to set up, you have to put your users in a secure space, you have to control policies, and all those things are, for example, making some users angry when they don't have access to something and they always need to request it and so on. Convenience. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, you guys are so much smarter than I am. But it's actually mostly a fight, security versus convenience. That's actually true. But you have to find a good balance somewhere in between. And I think convenience should never be the excuse for security. That's how I see it. But realistically, in the real world, you're always going to have a hard fight with other people that are probably higher in the hierarchy when you talk about those things with them. So it's not always that easy, yeah. But yeah, that's it about authentication, password, and there's one thing I probably have to say about least privilege access control, which is a concept I've got familiar with when I talked about zero trust. And zero trust is absolutely one of the most interesting concepts I've came across. And which is actually pretty interesting that zero trust is still a concept that is often misunderstood. Especially, I've seen this with my video about TwinGate, right? So, for example, when I did a video about TwinGate, which is like a zero trust VPN solution, many people were commenting about, oh, yeah, this is just a WireGuard service. And I thought, well, not really. I mean, this is not what the video was about, right? So it was not really about VPNs. It was about zero trust and the concept behind it and why it's different. And that's actually a lot of people missing the point here, because I also got like those weird comments where people were saying, okay, so when you're making a video about zero trust, but you are trusting another company. And this is not the same. And I thought, oh my God. So I completely missed the point here, because zero trust is not about not trusting anybody, right? This is like the most fundamental mistakes people have about zero trust. Zero trust is not about not trusting somebody. It is about always verifying that somebody is trustworthy. And that does mean, like, you start with zero trust, so you don't trust somebody just on purpose, or somebody always have to prove that he's trustworthy. And that is something different. Yeah, for example, like, and I always use the simple example with ZTNA, so Zero Trust Network Access, which is like, when you have like in the older days, how company networks were operating was like there was two parts of the network. There was like the internal network where you had your Active Directory domain controller, your switches, and so on. And there was the bad World Wide Web out there, right? So where all the nasty things are happening and so on. But it is actually an outdated concept, because that involves like everything that is coming from internal is to be secure, is to be automatically trusted. So you kind of blindly trust a client just because it's part of the internal network, because you assume it is a company device. So I can trust this device just because it is in the company's network. And that is what Zero Trust does away, right? So Zero Trust gets rid of this. We trust a device just because it's on one part of the network. The same is also true for like a user, right? So you not automatically trust a user just because the user is part of your Active Directory domain group. What Zero Trust aims to is the device always have to verify that it's trustworthy, so that it needs to approve that it's secured. And you usually do this with a bunch of different techniques, and every ZTNA vendor has their own type of integration and solution. It's like Zero Trust is like a concept, and how companies are achieving that concept is very much different. There are a lot of like vendors that claim to be Zero Trust, but they're not actually following all the best practices of that concept. So there is like a lot of confusion online, and I can see where this confusion comes from. But it literally is like, for me personally, a Zero Trust solution is when it applies those three concepts, right? Authentication, authorization, and least privilege access, which is like the device needs to prove that it's trustworthy, which involves posture checks, policy checks, like does the device have an encryption and so on. Does it have the latest security updates? Does it have an encrypted hard drive? And those kind of things. The user have to prove that he is authenticated securely. So, right, he's authenticated with the right credentials and so on, and it's not expired. And the third, which is least privilege access, that's what I also originally wanted to talk about, is does the user actually have the right privileges to do the operation that it wants to do? And this is like, if you follow the rule of like deny everything and just allow what you really, really need, then you are following or applying the concept the right way. I mean, it's like you always have to go in a fight with users, because users always need to request something. And like the administrators in the old days would just then, okay, so I just turn on your access and here you go. But it's probably better to apply something like strong policies where you say, okay, you need to get access to Outlook. Okay, I'm granting you access to your Outlook inbox. But you can also do this on a different level, like, is this user able to send emails? Is it able to only look in specific folders? Or should it be able to send emails from a particular email address or from any email address in the company? Those kind of things, right? So you need to ask these questions, and there you probably get an idea of, whoa, this is a lot of effort, right? So this takes a lot of time, not just because it's technically complicated, it's just work to set those privileges and to manage those things. And that's really where I feel like, okay, so in a Homelab scenario, I'm mostly okay with like authenticating the device, authorize the client, and access policies, well, there is where I get a little like, okay, well, I'm the only person in my Homelab organization, so I get access to everything, and that's totally fine. So that's, again, like, you always have to think about, like, that is why I said in the beginning, so we need to define the goal we have in Homelab. Do we want to use Zero Trust for educational purposes, or do you really believe it's actually better to only give you access to your internal services and, yeah, turn on everything one by one? It's actually not giving you any benefit at all. It's for educational purposes important, and it's important to know about this concept, but it's not like a must-have in a Homelab, right? Yeah, so these are probably I love to make a video about something like must-haves in a home lab, because I believe there are a couple of things that you just should have in place. Yeah, let's come to the things that I feel are very important. Yeah, because what we had, like zero trust, least privilege access. Okay, we had IDP and credential management, which is kind of like important. But I would definitely say, like, all of these sections, don't take them as you have to do them. Just get to them when you have time and when they're interesting to you, right? Because just like I said, just a quick reminder, remember the low-hanging fruit. So if you're like locked down the access to your servers from outside, you don't have to think about zero trust and network access policies, right? But yeah, that's it. There are also some others that I just want to talk about. For example, next generation firewalls. This is really something that is absolutely interesting to know about. Like, we're talking about IPS, IDS, but also like web filtering and those kind of things. I mean, that's probably one area where I have a lot of previous experience from Sophos XG, but also, I would love to know about Suricata or maybe like pfSense, OpenSense, those kind of things. I'm not well experienced with those open source technologies, more with the company specific solutions, but this is also a very interesting take. Now, one thing I probably should address when we come to IPS, IDS, you probably could also call fail to ban an IPS, IDS. I think once I researched it, they call themselves an IDS, IPS, but actually I don't see them as such. For me, fail to ban is kind of a weird thing, right? For me, fail to ban doesn't provide much benefit. It's really just like a blacklist, right? And some others have mentioned CrowdSec in the discussion. I haven't reviewed CrowdSec, but I know that CrowdSec has like two different parts of their product. They have one, the open source core technologies, which is like a crowdsourced fail to ban. But they also have like a business product that I personally haven't reviewed yet. But it's like when we were just talking about the open source thing and just call CrowdSec a better fail to ban. To me personally, it doesn't add much benefit to my home lab, because, as I said, when I just said, like, okay, I've done the low-hanging fruits, I've implemented all the best practices. To me personally, fail to ban doesn't add much benefit to it, because the only thing that it does is it blocks bad IP addresses. And I think, like, okay, well, IP addresses, that could be anything. It's like, this is not really like the most important thing to block, right? For me personally. But it's like a light version of an IPS IDS that really looks for patterns and malicious patterns in the network traffic. But it can be an additional thing you might want to do. I'm not really like the strongest fan of fail to ban and so on. It's really not. Yeah, that's about it. I haven't really done much with it yet, because I feel like having a blacklist that doesn't add any much benefit to my setup. I mean, what if I'm the first one seeing an attack? So then it doesn't help me in any way. So it's really, for me personally, it's much more important to actually protect from the actual payload and from the actual attack, because IP addresses can change all the time. It's not like anything that is like, I don't know. Yeah, for example, when you're doing one attack, the one day, the next day you're getting a different IP address to perform the same attack to a different person, and the IP address changes. Sure, it does block those stupid things, right? It blocks like this 99% of the, yeah, maybe not 99%, maybe like even like lower. It blocks like, probably, I don't know, it's a rough estimation, but maybe like half of the well-known stuff, right? Then it's like, well, okay, I could apply a strong firewall policy, I could apply a strong user access control and zero trust, and then I'm fine, right? But hey, it is like one of those technologies that are well known on the internet for a long time, and it does something. The thing that it does is when you're seeing when you're implementing fail to ban, you're seeing a lot of blocks in the log because there are so many bad, well-known IP addresses around that do all the admin login tries all the time. So it's like, but it's not really, to me personally, it doesn't seem very impressive to block those because it's like the most simplest thing you could do. But hey, anyway, I mean, it could be a nice addition to your Homelab scenario to add fail to ban or to use CrowdSec, something like that. But it's just know that this is more in the beginner level category, and it doesn't protect you from sophisticated attacks, and it doesn't protect you from any payload attacks, right? What I personally see like much more important is like encrypt everything. This is one of my favorite topics. I know it's weird that I address it at the end of the stream, but it's definitely one of my most favorite topics. Like, it's encrypting everything, and that means like when I'm accessing my servers, I'm mostly using a VPN, right? So I'm always like encrypting the traffic. Of course, mostly it's better to use encrypted protocols anyway. So of course, don't use HTTP, use HTTPS with trusted TLS certificates. I've done many videos on those topics. But encrypting everything, like for protocols that are not encrypted by default, it's a good idea to use a VPN to access your servers. Is it always necessary? No, because you can access HTTPS, like your administrative web interfaces, and even SSH without a VPN, because SSH and HTTPS is encrypted in the first place, so you actually don't need a VPN to connect to those. But it's obviously like helping a bit with like maybe blocking those stupid attempts on trying SSH ports and trying to scan for generic HTTP vulnerabilities on web servers or something like that. So maybe in this scenario, VPN is also nice. I think for me personally, the most benefit of a VPN is not really the encryption, but it's the access, so that you can get access to internal services behind NAT firewalls, right? But yeah, so those are kind of the topics that I've done. I just want to quickly address one thing that somebody commented on one of the posts is about like monitor security logs, pen testing and stuff. I would say like if you have like those 3 skill levels, right? I would just try to organize it in 3 skill levels. The first one is low hanging fruit. Block SSH if you don't need it. Shut down services that you don't necessarily need to run anymore. Go into security best practices for all those different types of services. Think about access control, encrypting everything, and so on. And then the third would be really go into pen testing and stuff. That is something I actually personally don't do. And I'm also not interested in pen testing myself. Because I think, like, for me personally, it is not so interesting to know how the sausage is made. I'm probably more familiar with knowing all the different stores where to get food. But I don't have to know how the food is made. I just have to know where the best food is made. And I can go there and taste it. That is actually my approach when it comes to pen testing because, well, of course, I know about security. I know how to protect from bad things. But I don't have to know how those attacks are actually performed. Is it an interesting topic? Undoubtedly it is. So I'm not saying like hacking is not interesting and so on. But for me personally, I think my time is better dedicated to different types of topics than getting into real pen testing or hacking. Because what I could do is I could just go and start doing those beginner videos about pen testing. I don't know, if you want to see a second network Chuck trying to learn hacking, okay, sure, but what's the deal, right? So I'm not really teaching anything new because there's already so much content out there about those, how to do an Nmap scan and so on. This is really not like what I love to do, right? So that is better. Like, that is why I just love to dedicate my time more on like, how do I stay safe on my home lab? What are the best practices for security that I can apply on my servers? And that is exactly what I'm going to focus on. So that's maybe like a good word at the end of the stream, is like, that is my goal for the future. Like, it's not like going into this very deep stuff of security, but showing you the best practices of those security technologies. So maybe my goal is to take this channel in terms of security and home lab, maybe not to the first skill level. So not just make those videos on, okay, so here's how to change the SSH port, or how to close the SSH port, how to create a firewall rule. That's probably not what this should be about, but maybe about second skill level. Talk about zero trust network access, talk about TLS certificates, VPNs, IDP, IPS, IDS, those kind of things, VLANs, access control, password managers, vault. And the third skill, which is like the red team, so to speak, pen testing, I'm just leaving out, because I think that's not really beneficial for a home lab use case. Maybe for educational purposes, but it's a completely different field of what we actually used to do. So, I mean, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this and you could learn something and it was valuable for you guys. But it's really like, you can definitely take from this stream, like the first skill is easy to achieve, but the second skill, we will have so many ideas for future videos and topics that we could all talk about, and I'll definitely do that. So, hope you like that. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done it. And yeah, I wish you all happy Easter, and thank you all for your wishes. And yeah. Next week, I will have another cool home lab project for you guys, so I hope that will be a lot of fun. And in the coming weeks, there will be a big project for my Proxmox server. So that will be really amazing. I'm so excited about it. I just recently started the recordings for starting like getting the hardware, testing the hardware. So next week, I'm building the new server and then try to get it somehow bundled together with my first Proxmox server, so there will be a lot of fun. So definitely expect some cool videos about that. Yeah, I hope to not break it, but yeah, when it happens, I at least have a backup. So I just need to make sure the backup was successfully done. So yeah, but I will. Thanks for reminding me, man. Okay, guys, so thank you all so much. Have a great Easter, and I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks for being here. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.